So I received an email from one of you guys the other day, and quite honestly, it surprised me. Not the email itself, but the fact that I got it, because I always forget that my email address is right there on YouTube, on the about page. And I've mentioned this before, and I'll probably mention it in the future, but this type of video right here is by far my most favorite type of content to make for this channel, because not only do I get to directly interact with you, the viewer, at least one of you, but I also get to help out. And that's something that I love doing. And I've mentioned before that, that's the whole point of this channel. So I got this email, and I'm going to read what the email said. And then I want to respond, and I want to at least share with you guys how I would handle the following situation. So I get this email that says, "Hey, Adapark, D. William White here." So his name's Daniel. Hopefully, he doesn't get too offended at me calling by his first name. I'm writing, I'm writing to you, hoping that you could shed some light on a situation that my guild is about to encounter. We have had to deal with it in the past, but it seems like we've never done it correctly. Since your guild has been around for a long time, which is true, I've been, as a side note, and I probably mentioned this like every other video, February 19th will be my 11th year as a part of my guild. Not always the guild leader, probably since the middle of Warlords of Draenor, always in a leadership position, or mostly always in a leadership position. But yeah, the guild's been around forever. But since your guild's been around for a long time, I'd like to know how you all handle it from year to year. Scheduling around holidays. Coming up in a few months, we have raid days that fall on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. I really like to give people the holidays off when I can, but the struggle always seems to be that when we give people long breaks, we tend to see a few not return. Not only that, but on top of it, should we consider taking off the other raid days that span those 2 weeks as well? We raid Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday. My goal is to do something that is fair, but also still leaves us with a progression raid team at the end of it. I'm in the raid leader position, but I'm not the guild leader. I do, however, have quite a bit of say in how things are ran around the shop. We're about to kill Mythic Maiden, and I'd really like to finish out the content. Any insight you have into this would be greatly appreciated. Best of luck with your channel and your guild's progression into or through TOS. Sincerely, Daniel. So just to recap here, so we're all on the same page. Daniel's asking the following. How should we handle holidays, especially when the raid days fall on a holiday, or you look at something like Christmas and New Year's, where there's obviously, there's a gap in between those two. That in the past, when Daniel's raid team took an extended break, sometimes people didn't come back. That if you take off for the holidays, should you simply scrap the rest of that week, or should you scrap that gap in between Christmas and New Year's? And as Daniel is the raid leader, but he's not the guild leader, he does clearly have the guild leader's ear to discuss raid and guild policy. And overall, Daniel still wants to progress. He still wants to put in attempts, and he still wants to wipe and wipe and wipe until he secures that kill. So this is an amazing question. This is a great question, because for a lot of reasons. One, it's a great question because as a leader, you want to be thinking into the future, right? You want to be planning ahead. You don't want to go, oh shit, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Oh no, we have this holiday coming up in 2 days. No, I mean, it's the beginning of the month, almost the middle. Okay, it's like the 11th. He still has about 5 to 6 weeks to worry about this before anything happens. And I've been in Daniel's shoes before. At the start of Warlords of Draenor, I decided as a guild leader that since the game came out like the second week of November, it was the 13th of November, that we would not start raiding until the beginning of the following year. My thought was that, we would take a week or two to level up. People would, do their thing. We would get into dungeons, we'd gear up, etc. But then we would hit that Thanksgiving wall in the US. And once that holiday was over, we had a few weeks before Christmas and then obviously New Year's. I told my guild that we would try, if we had enough people on, to raid, to do dungeons, etc. And ultimately what ended up happening was that those that pushed, those that were able to log in and level up and gear up and do dungeons and raid during that time pushed ahead, and they picked up gear, regardless of how weird and awkward and poor it was in Highmaul, but they were able to gain a significant amount of gear and experience into High Maul that a good chunk of our guild weren't able to do because they simply didn't log in, or they took their time because they knew, I have 2 months, almost 2 months to level up before we're even worried about, raiding in this guild. And what ended up happening was that those that did gain this foothold, they talked trash. They looked down upon those that weren't able to or didn't. It honestly created a lot of guild drama. And overall, while the communication was there, I told everybody our plans, the intention behind them, what was going on, I made a bad call. And I made a bad call about the holidays, and ultimately the guild suffered for it. We had a couple of people that left because they were pissed off that you weren't trying to gear and level up, and I've been busting my ass, and et cetera, et cetera. We lost a couple of people. Ultimately, it was for the best because they were just toxic players, but it happened. So I understand coming into this question how taxing and important a holiday schedule can be when you're talking about a raiding team. Regardless of whether you are pushing into normal TOS or you are hardcore mythic TOS, you make the wrong call and you've pissed off half, if not more, of the raid group. You make the right call, nobody cares, nobody notices. So what I want to do is tackle each of these questions individually. The first one here is, how does my guild handle holidays, especially when the raid falls on a holiday or that gap? So by and large, my guild will skip a raid day if there's a holiday. We did this for the US's Independence Day, July 4th. We included our Canadian raiders. We said, hey, you guys can have the day off too in the celebrations, and we're going to do that for Thanksgiving because it falls on, obviously, a Thursday. We raid Tuesday and Thursday, so skipping a day, especially during progression, it hurts. That's half of our raid time during the week that we're just not doing. The second one here is going for an extended break usually means that a raider doesn't come back, or multiple raiders just simply don't return. I don't know if this is a systemic problem with Legion in general, the grinding aspect behind it, if it's just such a deterrent. But people do get burnt out. And I get where not logging on is appealing. Just not logging on. Just don't do it. During the level up process after Legion was released, I'll admit to you guys, and I've admitted to my guild before, that it was nice to just log in, not have any obligations, not have anything to do. Just log in when I felt like it, log in when I wanted to, have no commitments, just level up, just show up, level up. It was fairly easy. Just do my thing for a week or two. The break was nice. And, I think that in order to combat this mindset, there are a few things that you can do. One, and probably the most important, this is one I say almost every single video, talk to your people before the break. Talk to them. Communicate with them. Be blunt, but tactful. Don't beat around the bush. Just plainly say it, but, in a nice way. Ask players if they're feeling burnt out. If anyone doesn't feel like coming back, does anyone have the intention to not return, at the beginning of the year or after Thanksgiving or after Christmas, whatever the case might be. Is anyone feeling like they're done with the game, they need a break, etc. Stress that while you as a player may want a break, and by all means you have, every right to a break, and let's be clear, as a raid or a guild leader, I can't say, hey there, so-and-so, you're not taking a break. You have to log in. And you don't. You don't control me. I don't have to give you your raid spot back when you come back. But, stress that you may have the intent, or you may be planning, or you may want to take an extended break, that it would really benefit the guild, and it would be courteous in general to just simply say something to you, or to the guild leader, or presumably you have someone or multiple other officers or some type of leadership where, somebody can go and say, hey man, I'm not going to come back, or, I need a little bit extra, whatever the case might be, that they say something so that in the end, you aren't trying to scramble last minute to get this stuff done. The second thing you can do is make sure that you are paying attention to people and watch their behaviors. There are tells when it comes to anything, and getting burnout is most definitely has its tells. So, you want to make sure that, people aren't logging in late, trying to get out of the raid early? Are people not pushing themselves? That this raider has been pushing themselves and doing a mythic plus 10 or mythic plus 15 every week, but now it's a 12 or a 10 or an 8 or a 6, and they're just not really trying. I mean, come on, those of you that have done the higher keys, 10 plus, a 6, a 7, and 8 is, at least in my opinion, fairly easy when you're looking at a higher level key. So when someone isn't pushing themselves and they have been doing it for a long time, that should be a clear indicator, hey, something's up. It's simply, are people getting burnout? Make sure you're watching for that. And the third thing, and this is probably the worst of the three, expect it. It's a crappy thing to say, it's a crappy thing to think about, but as a leader, this is the mindset that you have to have, is people are going to get burnout. People are going to get tired of it, especially with Legion. While there have been some major improvements, 7.15, 7.2, etc., with the catch-up mechanics, the burnout and the lack of players is simply going to happen. Make sure that even if you have a full roster, if you go into, Mythic TOS, next week and you have 20 players and they all log in on time, don't stop recruiting. If you have 21 players and one of them sitting the bench, don't stop recruiting. Continue to do it, because what you want to make sure that you do is, if people don't show back up after that holiday, you want to have your bases covered. So again, that you're not having a roster issue and scrambling last minute to pug somebody or to try to, get somebody to get a friend or, whatever. You want to have this handled, so you go, this DPSer just left. That really sucks. He doesn't plan on coming back. But we got 3 dudes sitting the bench that are ready to go. The next thing here is that, if you take time off for the holiday, should you scrap that entire week? And I'll add to that the last one, that you still want to progress. And, for my guild, I don't think, and we don't scrap the entire week because of a holiday, with the exception of something like Thanksgiving, which, again, it always falls on a Thursday, or Christmas, which this year falls on a Monday. So accept that it's not going to be a 100% productive week, but it doesn't mean that it can't be a productive week. You may not kill every single boss up to what you've been getting to every other week, but you can still get some gear, you can still get that precious artifact power, you can still get things done. And the last thing here is, Daniel says that he is, the raid leader, but he's not the guild leader. And the good thing is, he does have the guild leader's ear, and he is able to presumably discuss raid and guild policy with the guild leader. And this is the ideal situation. Maybe having the raid leader be the guild leader would be the most ideal, I guess. If it works for you, cool. But if you find yourself in a position where you aren't able to directly approach your guild leader, or that your voice, if you're the raid leader, you're an officer, if your voice isn't being heard, isn't being considered, that's an issue in and of itself that needs to be fixed tomorrow, today, yesterday, 2 weeks ago. Now, in this specific example with Daniel, everything sounds good. He says, hey, I'm not ultimately in charge, but, I am able to, pull some strings. I'm able to, have my voice heard. And that's great. That's the way it should be. He has the guild leader's ear, and he has a good amount of pull. This is exactly how it should be. If the guild leader is stepping back and letting someone else lead the raid, which, again, I don't, it's not something I've experienced, but cool. I mean, if it works, it works. Great. But you need to make sure, and everyone, not just Daniel, but everyone needs to make sure that if you find yourself in that position, that you are communicating with each other on a regular basis about both the guild and the raid, because ultimately they are the same thing, but they are separate entities. And it's a weird thing to say. Like, my raiders and the rest of my guild members operate on 2 different levels. I don't expect my guild members to do a Mythic plus 10 every week. I do expect my raiders to do that. I expect my raiders to, if shit gets dicey, they need to start donating or helping out with guild, with flasks and potions and gold and recruitment and all that stuff. I don't expect my non-raiders to do that kind of thing. So while ultimately, it is one big happy family, they are two separate entities and they do have separate rules. So make sure that you guys are communicating. Pull the guild leader to the side sooner rather than later and mention the upcoming holidays. Mention your concerns and come up with a plan. Come up with a plan this week. Come up with a plan next week. Don't wait until the last minute, because the sooner you guys come up with a plan and you can put it into place, and the sooner the raiders know, the better everyone is going to feel. Now, one last thing that I do want to talk about, because it's something that recently I've experienced in my guild, is the, for lack of a better word, non-traditional, and I hesitate to even say that, holidays, i.e. non-Christian holidays. Because here recently, with the start of Legion, we have 2 guys in the guild that celebrate non-Christian, specifically Muslim holidays. And this is new for my guild. And it's not something that I was used to. You know, we had a raider, a main tank, that was celebrating, or I guess maybe not necessarily celebrating, but fasting for Ramadan. And he was very blunt and said, hey, you know, once I'm able to eat, I need to take 10 minutes out of the raid and go eat. I haven't eaten all day. You know, the sun's down, I can eat. And it's something that we haven't experienced. And it was one of those things where ultimately I had to decide, you know, is it worth it to tell this dude on, you know, his religious holiday, no, you can't go eat and be that asshole, or we deal with it for a little bit. He's happy, you know, he gets to celebrate, you know, this holiday that's important to him. We get a little bit of culture, we get to learn about it a little bit, and overall the guild benefits. And obviously we, you know, it's like, dude, go do it, go eat, you know, come back. Somebody can log on to an alt, or we'll just wait for 10 minutes. You know, we could bullshit and gamble and whatnot, and, you know, whatever. And it worked out. And that's something that you should also be prepared about, you know, that World of Warcraft is, you know, the whole world. And, you know, you may have primarily, you know, in my case, you know, a United States based group, or obviously, you know, maybe a little bit different with a European server, but, you know, you have, most people are going to be pretty much the same. You know, they're going to celebrate or participate at least in Christian holidays. But just keep that in the back of your mind, that if you recruit someone, definitely don't discriminate. Don't be that asshole. But, you know, make sure that you understand that they may celebrate a different time, a different day. You know, things are different. My Canadian raiders celebrate things that us in the U.S. just don't understand. Poutine Day and whatnot. I don't know. But you got to make, you know, those days available is all I'm saying. Now, with all that being said, guys, hopefully, Daniel, you like the comments that I'm saying here. If you guys like something like this, let me know in the comment section down below. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to email me like Daniel did, like a couple of you guys have done, or leave a comment below. You can send me a message on YouTube. Let me know if there's something you'd like my thoughts, my ideas, my commentary on, and I'd be more than happy to talk about it. Until next time, guys, I'll see you.